awful like cars are still running when inside it's safe to deny that it's coming. TV's turned up so the winds are just humming to the sound of the heat rising.
We have the song 2006 From Green to Red, and you're in a way bringing that together with the data visualization of climate change. Yeah, summarise that for us. I know there's quite a lot going on here.
So I saw An Inconvenient Truth in 2006 when it came out, and I was just incredibly moved, but also really angry, by what was displayed in this film and how we'd let it get to this point. And so immediately after, I wrote this song From Green to Red, which represented a lot of the information and also my emotions around it. But I felt I didn't need to record it because I thought everyone would see the film, and then we as a human species would sort of figure this problem out. But then when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I recorded it, and actually it became part of the second album, Montague Square.
So now here we are in the tail end of 2019, and it seems to me that you're bringing together the emotion of the song, the anger about climate change, with the hard and I suppose unemotional data of carbon dioxide records going back quite some time.
Yeah, I think that particularly with From Green to Red, in terms of the last cycle of this incarnation, it was just this song. And then I was thinking, and even in the last 6 months to a year, how the problem has really been amped up sort of tenfold. And I just felt like art is at its best when it's reflecting the best of humanity, but also something of our divinity. But right now, I don't think there's any more important issue than the planet and what we are doing to it and what we've done to it. And so I really wanted to create a way of visualizing that people could get their heads around, because a big issue is that it seems so abstract and so vague and so subtle that it's quite easy to dismiss and for people to kind of not get emotionally engaged.
Right, so this is 800,000 years worth of data picked up from ice cores in the Antarctic, and data that you're interpreting then. So as people go into the installation, what will they see, what will they feel and experience?
So the idea with this piece is it's using 800,000 years of historic data, as you mentioned, predominantly looking at CO2 in the atmosphere, to create a sort of live weaving of the planet's timeline that people will be able to interact with and really interrogate. As they get closer, they'll be able to look into the threads and see what's going on there. There'll also be the lyrics that are woven in, which the music, the song. So it's on the one hand this protest song, on the other hand a music video, but also this entirely interactive timeline of the planet's CO2 atmospheric content.
So you're bringing a whole load of tech here, and I know this is work in progress, but ultimately you're going to have movement sensors that will pick up how people are interacting with the space. You'll have screens that will be displaying or projecting the climate data. So there's a data visualization movement, and all being driven by a games engine, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think a big component of it, as you mentioned, is that element of audience participation in terms of, they'll be able to really go into that fabric to look at these key moments in history and look at what's going on sort of behind the scenes. You'll also have these sort of shadow images of other factors that are coming out of the cloth, in addition to the CO2 inputs. And in addition to that, the music, as you get further away, will get foggier. The mix of the song will change, so people will also be able to sort of live mix the track with their bodies.
Go ahead.
So, looking at this teaser that you're showing us today, and actually starting to imagine from your descriptions this larger interactive piece, I'm really aware that it's so important that we're demystifying these kind of huge, big data sets of fact, which are very, very hard for all of us on a daily level to get our heads around, and seeing the images it's coming out. It sounds like with the information and data right in it, and people being able to go right in it, there will be a lot to share there from the facts that you've gathered. And are you hoping to show that into different arenas than, I mean, obviously here we're in an art setting, but I'm thinking about the width of access to this work in relationship to the width of interest there is, looking at Extinction Rebellion, all the climate change movement around.
Every time this is shown, wherever it will be shown, the context of the environment would be incorporated into the piece, so it really feels as if it's this live painting within that setting.
It would be very wonderful. I think it could go into large screen or public facade scenarios too, which actually possibly couldn't react in exactly the same way with the amount of motion and the crowd motion, but could be done through block tracking or whatever to actually create shifts, changes in it from crowds, but then allowing a much bigger set of people to get their heads around this, because it really does help. I think this visualization, data visualizations made in this way can just click in your head and you go, that's how it is, that's how really awful this is, how much it's growing in this case.
Yeah.
And as an innovator, of course, you famously and notably created a musical jacket where the strands are actually made up of your songs, so it's making a materiality out of your music. In this case, we have the song Green to Red accompanied by a virtual fabric, if you like, that actually goes from green to red in the screens as you go around the interactive. The green sort of strands represent the, I suppose, nicer, happier, pre-human carbon dioxide levels. Okay,
Yeah.
and then the Anthropocene kicks in, human influence on the planet, and that's the red.
Absolutely, and it's also that idea of trying to show the difference between weather and climate, and really having people understand that we've been here for such a short amount of time compared to the planet's overall timeline, and yet we've done so much devastation. And how do we grasp that when the timeline is so huge?
There's the question that BT Wolf ends with, talking to both of us yesterday.
Yes, yeah. And interesting, looking at timelines, we've just said Happy Ada Lovelace Day today, but in fact there, the influence of the jacquard loom is weaving again,
This
using
data is
textiles,
woven, isn't it? It's these visualizations.
totally woven, 24,000 punch cards used, which actually was the weaving machine that influenced the development of the analytical engine. So it all links up in these long timelines.
Oh, you wove that in.
Yeah. And I love the weaving into digital. She's right in the right place, BT Wolf.
What a pro. Thanks, Glenn. Well, finally, this is a car you wouldn't want to put a roof rack on this particular car because it might disrupt the car's sporty lines, but most of all, it would probably obscure its power supply, solar panels. Now, here I'm talking about the Lightyear One. It's a prototype car at the moment, but if all goes well, then it should end up on the road. People are already reserving these cars, and it gets around a couple of the snags with existing EVs. The electricity at the charging point is not necessarily generated in an environmentally friendly way, and that roadside charging point actually can be quite expensive. And now this particular electric vehicle claims to have a range of 720 kilometres, so that's about 450